Hello and welcome to this video where I'm going to show you how to work a cloth stitch, which is one of the two stitches that you use in bobbin lace. So this is my pricking, and it's just a plain straight down sort of bandage pricking, and it's available free of charge off of my website, and I'll pop the link in the description. Before I put my pairs on, I just want to say that I call cloth stitch because it looks like a woven fabric. Some other instructions may call it a whole stitch, and it depends where you are and who's taught you as to what the description of it is, the name of it. So what I would do is, if you can find an image of the finished lace, have a look at that, and if it looks like woven fabric, then it's cloth stitch. The first thing I'm going to do is to add my pairs on these pins here. So this is my first one on the right, and that is going to be where I'm going to hang my worker. The thread I'm using is a perle cotton, which is a thick thread, and I've got lots of different colours so you can see exactly where your thread's going. So I'm going to put my pin in this first pinhole on the right. Now when I put it in, I'm going to angle it slightly off in a diagonal direction. If you don't, and you put your pair on, can you see your thread immediately slides up the pin? But if you angle it back slightly, the thread sits on your pricking. And this is really important because it's going to have an effect on your tension of your lace. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm using ordinary pins that I would use for the rest of my lace. So I don't use berry pins or anything like that. I just use my general pins that I would use for all of my lace. The pair which is my worker, which is this cream pair here, I've wound a lot more thread on than I have for my passives because it's going to be doing the work. It's going to basically be following this zigzag line backwards and forwards, so it's going to use more thread than if you have a passive, which are these pairs here, that they just travel straight down your lace. So I'm adding each pair, and I've got 5 different colours so that you can see. When you're first learning, it's a good idea to have lots of different colours so that you can see exactly what is happening with your threads. So that's my 4th, and then I've just got one more to add. So these ones here, the one on the corner, I put my pin in slightly to an angle on the edge, so it goes towards the corner of my pricking. The ones at the back are just angled straight back. So there's all my pairs added. So that's my pairs. I'm just going to pop them over here and go back to this side, because this zigzag line comes from this pin here over to this side, so it's going from right to left. Now the other thing that I'm going to do, which is I found works brilliantly if you're just starting, is I'm going to pop these sticky numbers on my pillow, because even though you could have 100 odd bobbins on your pillows, the amount of bobbins that you're going to use is just 2 pairs. So there's my 1, 2, 3, 4. These positions never move. My bobbins are going to move, but they will always be 1, 2, 3, 4, numbered from the left. So this is my first passive, because my worker wants to travel through my passive. So that's bobbin 1, that's bobbin 2, that's bobbin 3, and that's bobbin 4. Now when you make lace, there are 2 movements that happen. There's a cross, which takes the left bobbin over the right bobbin. So if we ignore those 2 for the minute, this is my left bobbin, this is my right. So if I lift my left bobbin over my right bobbin, then the places stay the same, but that is known as a cross because the threads have gone from left over right. Now if I was to take my right hand bobbin over my left hand bobbin, that is a twist. So that is a twist. So those are the two movements that are really important, and those two movements combined create your cross stitch. So we've got our positions 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to, the bobbins are going to move, but those positions will stay the same. So the first movement we're going to do is take bobbin 2, which is this one here, and cross it over 3. So there we are. So this bobbin here is now in position 2, and this one is position 3. The second movement is we're going to twist 2 over 1. So we're going to lift up the right bobbin and put it over the left. So they've now swapped positions. So this one is now in 1, this one's now in 2, this one's 3, and this one's 4. And you can already see the start of the blue pair moving through the cream pair. The next movement that we're going to do is 4 over 3. So we're going to twist them. So 4 is going to go over to 3. So the right bobbin's gone over the left. So now we're just got to bring our workers back together and our blues back together. And so the last part of our movement is 2. We're crossing 2 over 3. And there's our worker pair back together, and our blue pair has travelled through, or the cream pair has travelled through. They've swapped places basically. So we're going to move our blue pair over, put our cream pair, our worker pair, into 3 and 4, and bring in our next pair, which is an orange pair. So again, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 positions. So we're going to do that exactly the same. So bobbin 2 is going to cross over 3. So 2 over 3. Then we're going to twist 2 over 1, 2 over 1, 4 over 3, twisting, and then crossing 2 over 3. And then you see your orange have moved through the cream, have swapped places. So we can move our orange pair over to one side, bring our cream pair back into position 3 and 4, and our red pair into position 1 and 2. So then we start the whole process over again. So we cross 2 over 3, twist 2 over 1, twist 4 over 3, and cross 2 over 3. So there's our workers back together, our passives back together. We can move our passives to one side, move our workers over into positions 3 and 4, and bring in our next pair. So now we do exactly the same again. Cross, so left over right, 2 over 3, twist 2 over 1, 4 over 3, we're twisting. Then to bring our pairs back together, we're going to cross 2 over 3. And there's our pairs back together. Move them off to one side. Bring in our yellow pair, who have now slid down our pin. And we're going to do exactly the same again. So we're going to take 2 over 3, crossing. So 2 over 1, twisting. 4 over 3, twisting. Crossing 2 over 3, and then we're at the end of the row. Now we're going to do 2 twists on our worker pair. Now depending who you learn with, this could be any number of twists. It is always a good idea to have at least 1 twist, but I always tend to go with 2 because it's a nice number that will take the threads around the pin. If you don't put any twists on this pair, when you pin up, you will get 2 separate loops around that pinhole. And generally in lace, we're going for nice, straight, tidy lines. And by twisting the pair and putting some twists on it, it will turn 2 loops into a single loop. So I'm going to put 2 twists. So that's right over left, 1, right over left, 2 twists. And you can see it has joined my threads together. So I'm going to pin up, and I'm angling my pin slightly out to the side. If I was to angle it like this, my thread travels up my pin, and that won't be very good tension. It will make it smaller than it should be because the threads are moving inwards. So I angle it just slightly out, if I can find the pin. There we go. And it just holds it. Don't go overboard and put it right out. It's just a gentle bend out. So that is your first row done. So now, according to our zigzag line, we're now going from this side over to the right. So we've got our bobbins in their positions, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And even though we're going in the opposite direction, the stitch is exactly the same. So you don't have to worry about going from left to right and changing the stitch. Once you know this cloth stitch, this is the only stitch that you need to know for your cloth stitch. So we're going to do 2 over 3 crossing, 2 over 1, 4 over 3, and then to bring our pairs back together, we're going to do crossing 2 over 3 again. And there's our yellow, and our workers have worked through them. So I'm going to move them off to one side, move my workers into position 1 and 2, bring my next passives in, and we're ready to do it again. So crossing 2 over 3, twisting 2 over 1, 4 over 3, twisting, and then cross 2 over 3, and we're through our green pair. Move them off to one side, bring in the next pair, and we start again. Cross 2 over 3, 2 over 1, 4 over 3, twisting, cross 2 over 3. And there's our pair through our worker, off to one side, and bring in the next passive. So we're off again, cross 2 over 3, twist 2 over 1, 4 over 3, twisting, cross 2 over 3, and we're through. There will come a point where you're probably saying this in your sleep, but it's all part of the learning process. So we're now on to our last pair. So we're going to cross 2 over 3, twist 2 over 1, 4 over 3, twisting, cross 2 over 3. And when you look at the effect of the thread, you'll see that the threads go under and over, so you're basically weaving, which is why I tend to call this a cloth stitch. So we're at the end of our row, we've got no more pairs, so I'm going to put 2 twists on this worker pair, and then I'm going to pin up again. Now at this point I will just say a little bit about tension. Now when you're into the finer thread, I personally don't tension very much, because when you move your bobbins, the movement of the bobbins pulls the thread anyway. But when you're working in the thicker thread, it is a good idea just to give them a little pull, just to pull out any stray loops, any uprised loops. But generally, I don't have a tendency of tensioning very much at all, because as you move the bobbins, it tensions itself. So if you've already tensioned it and then you move your bobbins, it tensions it again, and you could end up with quite tight lace. So what you're looking for is nice flat lace, not with lumps from either over tensioning or from not tensioning out your thread. So just keep an eye on your lace up here. When you're first learning, you're going to be looking at your hands, but over time your hands will know what they're doing, and then you'll be able to concentrate on your lace more. So now we're at the end of the row, and we're back to doing exactly the same. So let's do one more row. So cross 2 over 3, 2 over 1, twisting, 4 over 3, twisting, 2 over 3, crossing, and we're through that pair. Bring in our next pair, and we're going to do exactly the same. 2 over 3, crossing, 2 over 1, twisting, 4 over 3, twisting, 2 over 3 crossing, and weave through that pair. So then 2 over 3 crossing, 2 over 1 twisting, 4 over 3 twisting, 2 over 3 crossing, and we're done. Bring in our next pair. So 2 over 3 crossing, 2 over 1 twisting, 4 over 3 twisting, 2 over 3 crossing. Last pair, 2 over 3 crossing, 2 over 1 twisting, 4 over 3 twisting, 2 over 3 crossing, and we're at the end of our row. 2 twists and pin up. Now I'm just going to give them all a little bit of a stroke. Can you see here? This is the sort of loop that I'm talking about here. So I'm just going to pull that gently down. So that's basically your stitch, but we can make it a little bit quicker because if you notice, there are two movements that are next to each other that go in the same direction. So let me show you. So we're going to cross 2 over 3. So that's our first movement. The next movement, we're going to pick 2 over 1 and twist it. But the next movement after that, we're doing 4 over 3 and twisting it. So they're both bobbins are moving in the same direction. So if we pick up bobbin 2 and 4 and then place them over one bobbin to the left, you've done two movements but at the same time, so it makes it a little bit quicker. So it's exactly the same, but you're picking up both bobbins together. So once you've done those two, so you've done your twists, you can then do your 2 over 3 and you're through your first passive. Move it off to one side, bring in your next pair. So we're going to do 2 over 3 crossing. You're going to pick 2 and 4 up, and they're both going to lift over one bobbin to the left at the same time. So you're twisting both bobbins at the same time. So you're doing 2 over 1, 4 over 3, exactly the same time. Then to bring your pairs back together, 2 over 3 in a cross. So let's do that again. 2 over 3, pick 2 and 4 up, move them one bobbin to the left each, and then 2 over 3 to finish your stitch. So you're doing exactly the same, but you're just doing two movements at exactly the same time. So we've got our next passive pair, and we're going to do 2 over 3, pick up 2 and 4, put them over one bobbin to the left, so they become 1 and 3 position, and then 2 over 3, and then move those out the way. Now when you're first starting and you're concentrating on your threads, what I tend to find with a lot of beginners is they'll do 2 over 3, they'll pick this one up and they'll put that one here, but they'll leave this one behind. So you need to remember that both bobbins go over one bobbin to the left. Close with a 2 over 3 and you're at the end of your row. We're going to pop 2 twists on and pin up. So again, just angling your pin slightly out. Give everything a little stroke to get rid of any loops, and we're ready to do that row again. So 2 over 3, 2 and 4 over 1 and 3, and then 2 over 3. Move them out of the way, bring in the next 2. 2 over 3, 2 and 4 over one bobbin to the left, 2 over 3. So you can see it's a lot quicker because you've got two hands. You can do two bobbins at the same time because they're moving in the same direction. So 2 over 3, 2 and 4 over 1 and 3, and then 2 over 3. I'm hoping I'm telling you the right direction because my left and right do have a tendency of getting mixed up. So 2 over 3, 2 and 4 over 1 and 3, and 2 over 3. So you see each time you're worker, this cream pair, is working all the way through backwards and forwards. So 2 over 3, 2 and 1 over 2 over 1, 4 over 3, and then 2 over 3, and then 2 twists at the end and pin up. Give everything a little bit of just a stroke to get rid of any of those stray loops, and you can now start to see how this looks exactly like a woven cloth with the threads going under and over, which then brings me on to the anatomy of your stitch. So at the moment, let's look at the green pair. If you notice this bobbin on the left, the last worker thread it went over the top of. So if I lift that right back, you can see this worker thread here. So that's the left bobbin, and this one is what we class as a top thread. Now if I tried to do the same with this other right hand bobbin, can you see it? You can't see the thread because it's going underneath that last thread. So that is what I call a bottom thread. Now it's worth noticing the anatomy of those, because later on you'll need to throw pairs out, and generally I tend to throw out top threads. So it's worth knowing which one is a top thread and which one is a bottom. And you know you've done it right because the top thread it's always a little bit raised because it's obviously laying on top of the thread, whereas the right hand thread is underneath. So when you're all in one colour and they all get mixed up, if you can see this top thread laying just slightly above the other one, you know that's a pair, and your top thread is always on the left. So you can then reorder your bobbins. So I'm going to go and do a little bit more, and then I'm going to come back and show you some common errors which happen with this cloth stitch. I've now taken my lace on a little bit further, and I'm now going to show you a couple of common things that can happen that you might not actually want to happen in your lace. So the first thing is that with all the movement of the passives backwards and forwards, when you move them out of the way, there is a risk that one of the pairs could get twisted or crossed. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop a twist on this orange and blue bobbin. Now what happens when you put a twist or a cross on anything is that it pushes the threads apart. So this can make a tiny hole, and obviously the more twists you make, the further apart it will push the thread, so it will make it either bigger or smaller depending on how many twists you've got. So I'm going to do a row where I've twisted one of my pairs, because this is something that can happen quite regularly because you're moving your bobbins around. So I'm doing my cross stitch, so I'm doing my 2 over 3, 2 and 4 over 1 and 3, and then my 2 over 3. So I'm just going to do that across as normal, put 2 twists on my pair, pin up, just give them all a gentle stroke, back again, and I'm not sure if you will actually see this very clearly, so I think what I'll probably do, let me just pop 2 twists on. So here's our twist here. So as you can see, we've broken up the blue and the orange. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pop 2 twists on to exaggerate this. So hopefully it will make the hole a bit bigger. But what it happens is it breaks up the flow of your threads. So you don't have you don't have this nice long straight line. You get a cross or a twist in the way. So let's carry on, do a couple of rows. And it doesn't show up too badly, but if you've got a nice area of cloth stitch, it will show. So that's our first normal error. So I'm just going to do one more row and then I'm going to pop the threads back where they were. So that's that one. Right, so I'm just going to put my orange back where it was. Now, when you're first learning, I think it's really important, this is just a practice piece for you to learn the stitch. So I kind of feel it's really important that if you make anything, any little errors, to leave them in your lace, because then they can be used as a reference point. So this is the next one that I'm going to do is sometimes your workers get crossed or twist, so I'm going to exaggerate again and I'm going to put 2 twists on, and this time I think you will definitely see where the threads push apart. It's not quite so obvious on the when they're passives because they're just going straight down, but you will see it because you can see it's broken up your nice straight lines. But when you put it on the worker, it does actually show up a lot more because it pushes the 2 passives apart. So this is where we put our twists on. So you can see, look, we've joined our 2 threads that are running across. We've joined them there. So that should now push the red and the green threads apart. So I'll just go one more row. So as you can see, you can definitely see where our 2 threads have been pushed apart, and then they will come back together as we haven't got any more twists on them. So but you can definitely see the difference between this row here and this row here. So there some of the couple of the issues. The other issue would be if you didn't put the 2 twists on your pin as you went round it, you would end up with two loops. So if I take this pin out here, you can see that I have a single loop there, but if I hadn't put those twists on, you would get two single loops as opposed to just the 1 loop. So the last thing I'm going to show you with your cloth stitch is how you can extend your cloth stitch and make it look slightly different. I think this part of the stitch is under the cloth stitch part because it's just an extension of that cloth stitch, whereas half stitch is completely different and I think should be covered separately. So the one that I'm going to do is a cloth stitch and twist, as I call it. Now again, sometimes because what you're in effect doing is 2 half stitches, quite often it gets called a whole stitch, but I always tend to call it cloth stitch and twist because then you kind of know exactly what you're doing. You're doing a cloth stitch and then you're putting a twist on them. So you're going to do your cloth stitch as normal. So you're 2 over 3, 2 over 1, 4 over 3, 2 over 3. So you've gone through your pairs as normal. And then you're going to put a twist on both pairs, right over left. So now your pairs are twisted. You're then going to bring in the next pair and you're going to do exactly the same. Do your cloth stitch and then put a twist on both of them. You're then going to bring in the next pair, cloth stitch, twist right over left, bring in the next pair, cloth stitch, twist right over left, and then the last pair, cloth stitch, twist. Now you've reached the end and you've already got 1 twist on this pair, so I'm just going to add an extra twist, so it has a total of 2. Now this time I am going to concentrate on pulling my threads up a little bit harder because you have the extra twist there. It locks the threads in quicker than if it was just a cloth stitch. So now I'm going to go back, do my cloth stitch, twist both pairs, cross stitch, twist both pairs, cross stitch, twist both pairs, cross stitch, ooh, twist both pairs, cross stitch and twist both pairs. At the end of the row I put an extra twist on and then I pin up. And again, you can see that the extra twist causes a few more of those loops to rear up. So I'm just going to make sure that I've pulled them all down. So then I'm going to carry on doing that. I've now done a few rows of my cross stitch and twist, and as you can see, it turns the double line here into a single line, and you've got more of a gap between the threads, so it creates more of a single line and more of an open weaved cross stitch as opposed to the tightly closed cross stitch. So now one of the other things that I wanted to point out to you is at the moment I've pinned up, and this pin here is what I call open because there's nothing underneath it. So this is an open pin. Now the way to close it is simply to just go through one pair and you've now got your pin enclosed all around with your threads. So that's another term that is used quite often in lace, an open pin and a closed pin, and that's what it means. It means that if it's open, there's no thread enclosing underneath it. So that's another handy tip to hear. You'll hear it quite often. So so now I've reached the bottom, and although I haven't reached the bottom, I'm pricking. I'm going to show you how to finish off your little sample. And in lace we tend to do something that is called a reef knot. Now the reason that we do a reef knot is because it can be undone, whereas or it can be undone easily, whereas a granny knot it's not as easy to undo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I've lengthened my bobbins. I always lengthen my bobbins because you can always trim your threads, but you can't add on once you've cut them. So I make them as long as I can. And then I'm just going to cut my bobbins off. So I have one pair that is now without a bobbin. I'm just going to pop them over there. Now the way to do a reef knot is to, now it's made up of two parts. Now it can be either right over left, left over right, or left over right, right over left. Whatever you do first, you have to do the reverse on the other part of it, otherwise it doesn't become a reef knot. So I've got my two threads, and I'm going to lay my right thread over my left thread, so it looks like that. So I've got a cross in the middle and my threads have changed hands. I'm then going to take the thread that was my right thread and I'm going to push it through my loop, and it's made a knot. I'm then going to pull my knot up as far as it will go. So I did right over left, so my next movement has to be left over right. So I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to put the left thread over the top of my right thread like that. So now my threads have changed hands, but I'm holding my loop open with my other fingers. I'm then going to push my thread that's in my right hand, which was my left thread, through the loop to make my knot, and then I'm going to pull it tight, and that's my reef knot. I'm actually going to show you that with two different colors because I think it's a bit easier to see. So let me just cut these off. Now I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes, so I wouldn't necessarily, if you want to do it, because obviously you can actually see what's going on, but generally I would tie off in my individual pairs. So this one's just going to hang around for a bit, but that's fine, because it's just a sample piece, so it doesn't matter, and I'm not going to trim these. So I've got my green thread in my right hand and my white thread in my left hand. So I'm going to do, I always tend to do right over left. Now I would suggest there is a way that you feel more comfortable doing this, and it doesn't matter if you do left over right first, as long as you do that second part of it in the opposite direction that you've just done. So I'm going to lay my thread in my right hand over my left thread, and they've swapped hands. So my green is now in my left hand. I'm going to thread my green thread through the loop that I've made and pull it. So now my green thread, which was in my right hand, is now in my left, and vice versa with my cream white thread. So that was right over left. So I'm now going to do left over right. So there's my left over my right, and you can see I'm holding on to my loop. I'm then going to thread my green thread through the loop, and there's my knot, and I'm going to pull it. So let me just show you, have I got some thread here? The whole point of this knot, we used to do it with the brownies, so okay, you can see it better when you do it like this. So this is my right and this is my left, so I'm going to do right over left and under, and there's my knot, then left over right and under. And what happens is, can you see it makes two little loops that are intertwined? So that's going right over left. So let me show you that left over right, and you'll see it comes out exactly the same. So I'm going to lay my left thread over there. Ooh, it's not quite so easy when you haven't got it secured one end. Okay, so left over right and round. So there's my first knot, and then right over left and round. And you can see you still get exactly the same two loops regardless of whether you do right over left or left over right, and it's these two loops that you can undo. I've now tied all my reef knots and cut everything with a length, so the next stage is to just simply take your pins out and you've got your first sample made. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have got any questions, please do ask them, and if you like this video, then please like and subscribe, and in the next video I'm going to show you how to do a half stitch. Thanks for watching.